Welcome to a special episode of the Central Pennsylvania Music Podcast.
Hey, what's up, everyone? We have a special episode here today for you. We are sitting down with Jeremy Weiss, the owner of CI Records and Skate Shop here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Jeremy, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Yeah, not a problem.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for bringing us into your humble abode.
Yeah.
Dude, there's so many awesome things here as we've walked through the shop that we get to see. And it's like, I bring it up multiple times in the show, and I'm not going to bring it up for very long, but like being a part of the music scene, growing up and seeing like all these things, it's just like a walk down memory lane almost, like stuff from the Champ, stuff from the Chameleon Club, and all the different bands that come through, and I'm just like, wow, man.
It's hard not to be a hoarder. I think some people think I'm a hoarder. I really like. I live in a lot of these memories still, and try to create new ones. You know, so it's really a challenge to decide what gets wall space, and I have a lot of stuff because I feel like a responsibility. To almost be a house for this information as well. But,
like you almost have to protect it,
Yeah.
the sanctity of what is the music scene.
Yeah, like a historian or something.
Dude, that's awesome.
I mean, when is CI Central Pennsylvania Music Music History coming out? I mean, you make the museum for it, man. You got all the stuff.
Maybe like a 30-volume set or something.
Yeah, we should do that.
30 volumes. Call now, and we'll double your order for half the price.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, I mean, Jeremy, I do have some specific questions here. I mean, I took some time because this was an interview that I really wanted to really take serious because, I mean, I've worked with you in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to do right by you, so I took some time to sit down and write some pretty in-depth questions. So my first question for you, if you don't mind, is can you tell us a bit about your journey as the owner of CI Records, and how did you get started in the music industry, and what led you to establish it in Lancaster?
Well, I always loved Lancaster. Always. I mean, I did a lot of traveling with bands and all of that, but I always did love coming home. Even at times and periods in the city when it wasn't like that remarkable. I maybe that's something that I derived from my family, being in the central PA area my whole life, West Shore, Harrisburg, Lancaster County. But also, as far as like why I started, it's really hard for older guys coming up in like hardcore and punk to describe like starting, because there was no notion of business or anything whatsoever. You listened to artists, punk rock and hardcore artists, and saw that they were producing their own music, they were producing their own shows, starting their own record labels, and they were telling you could too, which is really remarkable, right?
Yeah.
Because Aerosmith wasn't telling me to start a record label.
That's a valid point.
I'm trying to think of other bands. I didn't pay a lot of attention to popular music. Mm-hmm. I really got into like hardcore punk stuff and just deep dove like crazy. And these were times when you tape traded with people at the beach and went to the mall and saw someone in a Misfits shirt and were like, that's my new best friend. It was really,
that's awesome.
Really a thin herd of people, especially in rural and remote cities, So
like if you saw each other, like you knew,
instantly.
Oh, you knew.
Oh yeah, there was it was kind of fun in that regard, but it's balanced. Like now it's really cool that anyone can like any kind of music, and when I say extreme music, I don't just mean like death metal. I mean anything that's really complicated art-wise or challenging to the 4/4 beat or pop music. That's a really cool transition to today. But I'll say that back then, the guys I idolized had record labels. They were only a couple years older than me. I actually called Discord Records, which was Minor Threat, singer and drummer own it, and it's iconic. It's it was my greatest inspiration. And they told me where to press a record, how to get it done, about how much it would cost. When I wanted to tour with my band, he sent me in the mail like a whole stack of contacts of people to call to book.
Wow.
Like it was insane. It was just very, very communal and not territorial. So actually my story is of gratitude as to how and why I got started.
That's awesome.
That's great.
That's a really good answer. I'll be honest. That was awesome.
It's true, and I can also tell you that you happen upon a quote career. Like there were like 20 years where I would not call this a career. It seemed counterintuitive because A, you like it way too much, and B, there was like an ascribed shame that if you were really artistic, how could you possibly get sustenance from that financially. Like, that's not cool. But then I started thinking about it differently. People who showed a desire to do a job that other people wanted done, like putting on concerts or creating spaces for people to play music or write music or release music. People who, like me, you know, who wanted to do it and devoted all of their time and every ounce of energy to it, I started feeling less ashamed. Like, well, what am I ashamed of? I want to do this. I have like this craven desire to keep doing it, and people are deriding enjoyment from it. And that's when I finally, I think in my mid-30s, was allowed to call it a career.
Wow, that's great.
That's a really good answer, though. Honestly,
It really is. Now, you started this in 1987, correct?
Yeah, in my parents' basement.
Your
Yes.
parents' basement.
Yes.
So 1987, some time ago. You've seen a lot of things come and go. You've seen a lot of change over the years. Looking back from 1987 to right now, 2023, is there anything you would have changed or done differently over the years?
Well, it depends on the direction of the question. So if I was talking about like business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because, you know, I was just kind of finding my way through it, making mistakes, paying for them, and doing that. So I would always encourage people to ask more questions before they delve into something.
Yeah.
Kind of like blind and just for passionately, right? So there's that. But I think insofar as your question on a personal level, I may have allowed myself to say this is actually what I do earlier in my life without the punk rock guilt, you know, that I mentioned earlier, you know. Because I just feel like looking back, that was kind of it inhibited me in a way. I would like slow play things that I was doing, or I would leave something to someone else to do because of the guilt of like, you don't want to be a corporate monopoly and all that kind of stuff. And none of that was ever true. I mean, that is a very misused, that's a bit of an overreach to call like an independent record label that does shows in a 60-mile radius a monopoly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But we were kids, and that's how we talked about each other.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, I guess you probably wouldn't have it any other way, though. Did you enjoy the journey through over the last, few decades?
I have, if I have any guilt now, it's enjoying it so much.
I love that.
It's crazy. Like, it really is. It hasn't affected my ability to be a good husband, a good father, a good friend, to do things, socially and travel. But it's like, I literally love going to work every day. I love it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Not many people can say that either.
No.
I'm not like condemning anyone else.
No,
Everyone has
not.
different thresholds and needs in life. I will tell you this: for decades, like, my needs were managed based on what I could accomplish just having a life in music. So I put up with a lot of things that other people probably would not. So if it sounds like I'm calling everyone else a sucker, I guarantee they're calling me a sucker too. I mean, if you're sleeping in a filthy floor in Germany at a squad house, that's not for everyone. But
Yeah.
I'm the nerd, like, writing in my journal, today is the best day of my life. Like,
I got to have the first experience of living in squalor.
I'm like, well, yeah, why did I journal? It can't be true. Everything was amazing in my journal. But some places I was chopping wood at 3 a.m. because we had a wood fireplace, which probably was a little toxic too. But things improve over time. I think I am unique in the way that my thresholds. Everybody in America likes nice things and cleanliness and all that, but I didn't give a shit. Like, I would do it no matter what. I went anywhere, anytime, because I wanted to, like, live, and I had this
Makes
thought
sense, yeah.
early, like, that if you can travel with music, regardless of compensation or career trajectory or whatever, that I was ahead of Jeremy at 40, because Jeremy at 40 would have saved enough money to go to Europe or Japan or whatever and finally have gone and begged off a week at work. Like, I always thought that way since I was a teenager. So if I can go now and they'll, like, cover my cheap airline ticket, at the time they were kind of cheap, I'm going. Because I'm checking all this stuff off the list, and I'm doing it by participating in the thing I absolutely love most.
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
like that, if not now, then when mentality.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's great.
Yep.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm just kind of flabbergasted by it because it's the experience, man. Like it's like why put off the experience to be like you fall into the line of like what like society tells you like, oh, you should do it a different way, you should do it a better way, you should save, you should be able to do all these other things, and you're like, yeah, but I have the opportunity to do it now. It may not be everybody's cup of tea of way of doing it, but like for me, it fits. And I'm here for the experience. Like I'm here to take every day by the horns.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, like I was saying, though, I mean, there were influences in my life that were like, this is the worst decision you've ever made. But you just got to understand that everyone has their very hyper-personal view of how life should go.
Absolutely. I mean, and if you live your life waiting for like everyone else to tell you like, oh, like, hey, like, you know, they know you're good at punk or hardcore and like, hey, you shouldn't play that show. You should wait for like this opportunity or you should wait for that opportunity. If you don't ever have the courage to follow your gut, you're never going to do anything. You're never going to go anywhere. If you're just waiting for what other people are telling you to do and for those things that are hypotheticals and you don't ever have the courage to just go out and do what you feel you should do, you're never going to go anywhere. You're never going to have those experiences.
I happen to agree.
That's great.
Yeah.
So second question that I have for you is, and I apologize to everyone that this seems so structured, but like I said, awesome guy. I want to make sure the questions are good. So
well, that remains to be seen.
True. What inspired you to create a record store in an age now and continue running it where everything's going digital?
I'm a little stubborn, that's for sure, right? And I do like to do things that I'm directly interested in. So there was a period of time where I had 3 record stores. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but I went down to Philadelphia as a teenager. I would always save my little dishwashing checks, and we'd all cruise down to Philly, and there'd be a bunch of record stores. There wasn't one. So I wanted to open one in Philadelphia. I was like, I'm slightly old enough, you know, to pull this off. Like, I'm not 17. I'm in my mid-20s, so you know, we just did it. I mean, it was awful in the beginning. We had no money, you know, but we just painted and bought as many records as we could and opened on South Street. Well, it was similar here. My favorite record store in Lancaster that fed me all these amazing records that affected my entire existence was closing. And it was like losing, you know, a relative. I just couldn't deal with it. So the day they closed, and with that owner's permission, I opened exactly where they had been last located, on Manor Street in Lancaster.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was like I felt like the call, you know, like there has to be a record store, or there won't be. It's an older term, but there won't be a scene if we don't have these critical things. We've got a club. We need people to book the right shows, the ones I like, right?
Yeah.
And we need a record store to keep the music acumen of the indie music fan like on point. And you're right, when it went digital, because we hit a stride where we moved into like a strip mall down the street, and it was like Friday's payday, everybody's coming in, so we broadened our selection to include every style of music. And that was fine. But then I saw coming down the pike, I got the first iPod, and I was like, oh, this is over, right? Like I got to downsize. So I moved over to Chameleon, and I rented their space and went back to just vinyl like years before people stopped buying CDs. And for a long time, people were like, you're crazy. And I'm like, no, man, it's coming, because I have one that holds 100 songs and I love it. That's how long ago it was. And trust me, it's coming. And I've been to Japan and they have music on their phone. You know, like I was really thinking about that, but I still wanted to have a store. So all you have to do, again, remember what I said about managing like your expectations and your needs in life? Okay, I'm not going to be this mega store, but I'm still going to have a store. And so we expected less from the store. It became a much more narrow community of weirdos like me, and that was totally okay.
You were comfortable with pivoting because you had to.
Yeah.
It was the only way you were going to start. So, but with that saying, so you decided to still keep the store. And it's funny, I always bring up, you know, oh, the digital age came then, but what we're actually seeing now is a resurgence in vinyls, and everyone are like buying vinyls.
Well,
like,
now I look like a genius. Yeah, but that's not the story at all.
But with that though, I mean, so what unique experience or value do you believe that physical records offer to music lovers?
I mean, it's like anything. it was really great that we were eliminating like wasting all this space in our homes and kind of like the sensory overload of seeing everything all at once all the time. And
Yeah.
you know, a lot of us like collect all different types of things, and it can be a lot. But there are certain things that we needed to reintroduce that used more senses, you know, that we were reading, touching, hearing, you know. It just seemed like, and vinyl looks like so edible that you can almost taste it, right? Like
yeah,
some of those
it's
colors.
forbidden candy.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I'm so glad vinyl made the cut of like, okay, we got rid of all this stuff, but I'll keep the Nook or the Kindle, but I want the vinyl back. Is that okay? You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we decided. I don't know about you guys, but when I open a record and I can pull out the lyric sheet and I can read along or see some photos that aren't posted or, you know, whatever, it's just a more intimate experience. And I know it sounds... Yeah, I can nerd out about that for a long time, so I'll stop.
I believe it. I'm the same way when it comes to like comic book stuff. I can nerd out forever. Comics and music, I can nerd out forever.
Yeah, but you could read those pages virtually any time, really, right?
But it's not the same as opening a comic.
And why is that, right? It's just something about our humanity. We just want to, you know, you can 3D print a hot dog, but I don't think people stop grilling.
Yeah, that's true.
That is a 2023 analogy if I've ever heard one. Yeah, right. Now, I did want to ask, going back to, I know you said you started this in your parents' basement.
Yes.
Can we go back just a little bit before that? What was the moment where you were like, wow, I can do this? Were you at a concert and you were talking to somebody? Did you have a moment just at a concert watching a band and you just had that almost religious experience where you're like, I want a career in music? What was that? Or was it just...
It definitely wasn't choosing a career in music. I mean, I went to college or my Catholic mom would have killed herself. You know, I had to do that. But I was always creating music and releasing records and working crap jobs to pay for the pressing plant off and like putting on shows, driving from Pittsburgh all the way back to Lancaster all the time to put on shows at Chameleon. But earlier... It's my dad had been in a band on a major label that was like this close. They were on ABC Paramount. It was like a doo-wop band in the 60s from Elizabethtown that toured the United States with like big stars and was on that American Bandstand show from the 50s and 60s. Yeah. And he had this deal with a major label. This may have affected my entire delving into like indie music. Now that I think, I'm having an epiphany on this.
Yeah, right?
But
that's what we do.
See?
We'll send you our hourly rate then for the therapy after this.
Good.
Yeah. We'll switch you and lay down here.
Yeah. You asked me for an answer and you gave me all the answers. But I was thinking, when he had been in a band, he would tell this story, and it just sounded like a regular rock and roll story. They had been signed. They were supposed to go to England, and they were told they were going to do a reverse Beatles, where they would go to England and shock the country there while the Beatles were killing it in America. Well, they kept delaying. That movie Ray had something to do with it. Like Ray Charles had been signed by their label. They shelved all these bands. My dad was flat broke, and he's like, I'm going to medical school. Like, period. I'm done, right? And he went to medical school with like $18. You know dad stories. And,
it was uphill both ways, and it snowed every day.
I saw a picture of his fit, and I questioned if he had $12. But anyway, when he went to medical school. But anyway, he quit the band, and then like the guy in the band was so bummed out, he eventually went on to like commit suicide. It's like this big rock and roll story. Obviously, I think he might have had a few more things that bummed him out, but, you know, it sounds Hollywood, right? So I was obsessed with my dad's band when I was like 10, and I would always be fascinated that my dad could like sing songs in a studio and put them on vinyl and they would come out. Well, everyone else was doing that work at the time, but I was really impressed by that. So I started awful bands. You know, because I wanted
we
to
were
be
all
like
in one,
my dad,
right? Yeah,
right?
I've definitely had a few.
But I was like the 4'11" son of Jordan, you know, trying to play basketball. Like my dad was very good, I was not. But then I started to realize, like, I'm never going to get signed to a major label. I'm never going to have the story from a major Hollywood motion picture. I got into music by people who were self-releasing and just started doing that. Wow. So the first three CI titles are like me. Yeah.
Wow.
He's like, I'm not gonna make it to the major label. He's like, so I'm gonna make the label and I'm gonna release it. And he found the loophole in the matrix. He's like, I am the label.
That's right.
Can't beat him, join him.
Yeah, that's exactly, dude, that's really smart though. But that's the kind of creativity and like the creative thinking that business owners need to have. You find a need, and you fill it. Like that. If you want to break outside the mold, you don't want to be part of the mold. You want to make your own mold. You find a need, you fill it, and you were like, well, I know I want to do this. I know I'm not going to make it to them. So I'm just going to bypass them and make my own label.
Well, we weren't making music that at the time was ever sought out. Like there were no Nirvana and Green Day signings, and we made them sound like church choirs, you know? So like that's why you just didn't even consider that. In the same way you didn't consider it being lucrative. I mean, the label was not everything I put out is my jukebox. And it may be a broad spectrum of styles and music and stuff, but I roll those songs all day, every day.
Awesome.
It's ridiculous. And the new bands that we pick up, like, I genuinely love them. And I know that they're looking for a middle-aged man as their demographic. So it all works out.
So it works out.
Oh my God.
That's awesome.
That's great. So what would you say is... Sorry.
Yeah, that was really good. That was unexpected. That was good.
So you, not to keep throwing out numbers. So once again, you started in 1987. So we're gonna go through. I mean, there was a couple eras there. You have your 90s grunge rock era. You have your early 2000s. Let's go pop era. Then you had your 2010 where metal took over. I'm looking around the room here, seeing all these bands I used to love that started out in 07 to let's say 13. What would you say was your biggest boom in the industry?
Well, we had a really, really good run of like punk bands. Like I do have the softest spot for like whatever you call punk or hardcore punk of, you know, the early 80s. I mean, I was too young, believe it or not. Don't get smart. To like go see those bands, but I was really, really intrigued by. I loved like Exploited and the Clash. Well, the Clash wasn't really that heavy, but the Black Flag, you know, all that stuff. And I have two older brothers, and they found punk, like when you had to go to the mall and order it from the conventional record store and wait 3 months for it to show up on a boat from England. And so I had a cheat sheet too, where I'm 9 or 10 years old and I'm delving into British oi music, you know, like skinhead street punk, you know, like, so there was that foundation. I mean, I was fairly normal. I still liked other stuff, but I think that really helped a lot. And our run in the late 90s had a lot of hardcore punk bands that were doing good, you know, like there were enough weirdos like me who wanted the records. So we always sold through pressings. And I still love those records. But then I don't take these turns with there's no map, but a couple of my older hardcore friends at the time, hardcore punk, whatever, were doing more melodic stuff. So it was like the earliest, like seminal roots of emo music, I guess.
Yeah.
So we hit this stride where all of a sudden now I'm doing all these legacy guys who are mellowing out, and they became very popular and influenced the next gen, what you're referring to, of like your Jimmy Eat World and you're at the drive-ins and you're, you know, those kind of things. So that was a very good run. And then this kid works at my store and he says he's in a hardcore band and he plays a song and I'm like, well, that's metal, you know, and that was JB.
Yep.
So we had been releasing some 70s style punk by a band called the Pink Spiders and some sassy post-punk by a band called Sadaharu. And then I wanted to put out this, like, what we called metalcore band. Like, it was a brand new term. And I remember saying expressly, and I've said this before when I've been talking to people, but it's because it's true. I'm like, this may not be the best you're going to be, but if you're this good now, you're going to be one of the top 5 bands in the world in this genre. You know, they laughed and laughed and laughed, but it did come true. I'm very happy about that part.
Oh, yeah.
For everyone that does not know who he's referring to, he is referring to JB of August.
Oh yeah,
Burns
August.
Red.
I'm not
JB
trying to be
Brubaker.
coy.
No,
yeah,
I get that.
No.
No.
I thought I said August Burns.
No, it's
I
okay.
apologize.
But
But that was awesome.
everyone knows.
You know, they were super young and they recorded this ripping record, And then we kind of, because of the early success of that, success is a relative term. I mean, they were still, we're talking like they sold 2,000 CDs and we're like, woohoo, you know?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
Then we started getting these badass demos. And for 1 second, I was like, well, hey, I don't presume to be the master of metal. Like I saw Slayer and loved it, you know, but I'm not like this guy who's trying to establish this label as the curator of the modern metal scene. But these demos kept coming in that were amazing. Like they just were, this band With Life in Mind. And we just started releasing them. We're like, yeah, we'll release you. Yeah, we'll release you. And then those kids from Ephrata, Texas in July, I mean, one of them had a learner's permit the first time I met with them. The rest of them were underage even to have a learner's permit. So it was one of those instances where they brought me some stuff they had recorded. And again, I had this like, you're this good now? Like, I kind of hate you, you know? So anyway, I'm really proud of like what happened here. Like these are two bands that I really think influenced like a whole globe of metalcore and are widely recognized. And remember, I always loved Lancaster, so I'm like winning on so many levels. You know, they're not assholes. They're like really nice people. They're exceptional at their instrumentation and their songwriting, and like it's from Lancaster County. Like I just couldn't believe it. I was really excited.
Hitting the lottery on that one.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And I mean, this is like, I think this is a perfect segue for this because you're talking about how like, you know, you heard the demo and then you started getting all these other demos. So one of the questions I had is like CI Records has been known for its dedication to supporting local and independent artists. How do you discover new talent and what criteria do you consider when deciding to sign or promote an artist?
Well, it is weird because I guess today you have to think of a few other things. But like yesterday, we had a meeting with an artist that's not punk or hip or hardcore or whatever, who has 60 monthly listeners. Like it really can be A or B. Yes, it helps if you have like you can prove that at least your mom listens to you. You know,
like someone listens.
Yeah, but I will tell you, this has been the case my entire life. I have this weird vetting process where like I can't give you all of my time if you're not giving you all of your time. I'm not going to tell you to drop out of school. I'm not going to tell you to have no income. But like if your off the clock time from those two pursuits needs to be like divided, or you just need proper rest, I'm pretty hardcore. Like, oh, well then forget it. Like you're really good, but you've already I thought you were a 3-legged dog in a 4-legged dog's race. Man, you're doing handstands. You're like a 2-legged dog. Like this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
So like that is part of the vetting process. This term now is like so overused, but there always was a culture to like CI, and it is always derided from those earliest hardcore punk records. Like the singer of Minor Threat and Fugazi, the guy who owns Discord, like he said, the success is not the result or the financial gain from what you release. It's recording something to your own satisfaction, getting the aesthetic to the way that you're satisfied, and bringing it to market. That's where you've succeeded. You started something and you finished it, right? So I fervently believe that as well. And our entire catalog is riddled, like every record label, with artists that did not even like recoup or succeed in the financial portion, but that never was the barometer of success for me. Like I released 4 records by bands, you know, who never actually recouped because it was very culturally, and another overused term, it was like a family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it is like a family. If you look at major labels, I think it's, you know, Warner said we stick with Led Zeppelin no matter what, you know, like that also was an influence on me when I was really young. You know?
So if you found like an act, you're like, these guys have something. Doesn't matter if they're recouping financially, but I know they have something. Like, we're sticking with them. Like as long as they're putting their effort in and they're making it known that they're still in the game, like we're gonna support you, we're gonna back you the entire time.
That band I mentioned from Lancaster that did 4 records had like a $2,000 marketing budget maybe, and ended up in alternative press, top 100 bands to watch in the world, and they had a really great run with their videos being shown. It was shot here in Lancaster, of course, on various like Fuse and all kinds of the old school like video TV shows and stuff. Same thing when the Pink Spiders, that was a $900 recording, but their ethic and their philosophy was like right in my wheelhouse, exactly how I felt. Like, just get out there and keep doing it, keep doing it.
That's awesome.
So at that time, I find out about this band from Nashville that's just putting stickers all over the entire city. I think the statute of limitations is up on that, so nice try, Mayor of Nashville. But I will tell you,
that's awesome.
They just put the Pink Spiders are taking over. And like everyone in this huge city, this music city, is like, who the hell are the Pink Spiders and when are they taking over? Brilliant.
Yeah.
And when I heard about this from one of the guys that was helping with worked for me for 5 years and toured with this band, I'm like, I gotta know more. Well, that band had that ethic. Like, there's no plan B. This is who I am. This isn't what I am. This is who I am. And that I attribute that a great deal to their success going on to Geffen and MTV and all that crazy stuff.
No, I love that. It sounds like your approach was very abstract with result. Would that be a good way to put it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I made a whole movie about it. With Barn Burner is largely focusing on these major influencers from Lancaster County, and not just that they had an influence on the globe in that genre, but why? And I really give a lot of credit to. It's weird, but that movie kind of deals with it, and this is across the board, regardless of genre. Our blue blood, like our work ethic, maybe going all the way back to our early Amish and Quaker roots. I don't know. Like, I slept on an Amish farm for a weekend. Like, they wake up, they work their butt off, and then they are satisfied with their yield and go to bed. Like, they don't ask a lot of questions. They assume that if you put in the work, enough is going to come back. And that I really do believe is a lot of in our DNA. Maybe that's why we have all these phenomenal musicians. You're not quantifying your worth entirely by the result financially. You just keep doing something really well and aiming to improve, and good things happen.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I guess that kind of answers a question that we ask a lot of people on here. What do you think makes Central Pennsylvania so special compared to other areas when it comes to the music industry? Because I think it's pretty obvious that there's
the blue blood.
Yeah, I think you might be right. It's the blue blood, but
there's that, and I did a ton of touring for like 15 years as a tour manager, and I mean, a performer no one will remember. And I can tell you that going to cities of similar size and even bigger, I didn't realize we had a music infrastructure here that was totally dissimilar. How blessed we really were. Mm-hmm. The Chameleon Club was the rarest gem in similarly sized cities in the country. Mm-hmm. And because of our geography, the way we are situated between major cities, major markets, where all the big bands wanted to play because they could get more people to come to the show and make more money in one night. DC, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, New York, Boston, Philly, of course. Well, now we're getting all these like super well-known, renowned acts across all genres playing Lancaster on a Tuesday, on a Wednesday, on a Monday, on a Sunday, because they called them like gas stops. Just, hey, we got to rent the bus anyway. You don't make money closed, right?
Yeah.
So we got to see all these acts, and I think, early in my teens, I took it for granted. By the time I was 15, I wanted to contribute to that. And that's when I'm like, well, I'm going to bring the important hardcore, punk, ska, indie rock bands here. That's going to be my contribution to Lancaster. And but they were already bringing like insanely well-known artists. they were just underplays, but we didn't know it. So fast forward 20 years, you have generations of people that have a music acumen they're not even aware of. You know, Modest Mouse was cool here way before it was cool elsewhere. And
Yeah.
I could bore you to death with 30 other examples, from My Chemical Romance and Jimmy Eat World to Ice Nine
Dashboard
Kills.
Confessional.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And those bands would say, oh, dude, they were down, you know, way before. Nobody here really knew it. We took it for granted that, like, oh, they're used to this. No,
Yeah.
they weren't, you know. And I'm very proud of that, of our city, of our county, of our tri-county area. Because, of course, it wasn't just Lancastrians going to the shows. It was York, it was Harrisburg, it was Gettysburg, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I miss the Chameleon Club, and being from being a prior local performer and everything. Dude, the Chameleon Club was like, that was like a checkpoint back when I was playing. It was like, if you all started at the Champ. Everyone got their start at the Champ. That's where you tested your mettle. You saw if you broke in the Forge or if you came out stronger.
Yeah.
And then if you played enough at the Champ, eventually, if you got enough followings and you got enough, you know, people knowing your name, you would try to get on these ballots for the Chameleon Club. And I remember the first time I ever got to stand on the stage of the Chameleon Club as a performer after seeing so many acts come through, and like now I'm on the other side. And the way it was just packed, the way it was designed, there was something about the Chameleon Club that it made you feel special. It made you feel like you made it, even if it was your first time there, because you had people in front of you packed in like sardines, people all above you, around you, packed in like sardines, and you were just like, this is it. Like, this is the feeling I've been looking for. This is the moment that I've been working so hard for. So I remember the Chameleon Club was the first venue that I was genuinely like saddened when I heard that it closed. And I was like, I have one of the best memories of my musical career on that stage, like to this day. And it's like, and I'll never forget it. I still have the video on my phone of the best thing that I ever did.
It had a way of spoiling the concert attendee too, because we all had such proximity to the artist at the Chameleon that, you know, guys like me, when I start touring, I assume that's the way it is everywhere. Like, hell no, right?
No.
So we had these people that got to see all this amazing stuff in a market that probably shouldn't really have been on the routing. And then coupled with the fact that we got to make a more interpersonal connection or feel more personally connected because of the layout of the room. And that's the same way on the other side, because I was on that stage a bunch, you know, when I was a kid. And I can tell you, I think that connection is also rare. We've all been in sterile clubs with, why is there a barricade? There's 9 people here, you know. why are there 7 bouncers? Like, I think they're gonna bounce me, you know. Like
I didn't even do anything wrong yet, but they're probably still gonna throw me out.
yeah. So that was all very special, and I have a tremendous debt, you know, to that venue, and especially that original founder who took the risk, Rich Ruoff, and threw everything he had into it and built that here. It is kind of an inspiration, you know, for me and the way that I saw life, you know.
Absolutely.
I did my first show there when I was 15, and I remember my dad's waiting outside in the car. I rolled in, I want to talk to the owner, and this guy's old. He was like 24, you know.
This guy's old.
Yeah. And I'm like, I want to do a show. And he's, it sounds so corny. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, no, but I mean, listen to me. And he's like, I said, okay. You know?
Like, you were so ready to sell it, but he was
ready.
like, well, you're going to hear it anyway because I have this whole thing prepped. So hear me out, even though you already said okay.
I listened to like aggressive punk music all day to get fired up for you to just say yes right away. Like,
What a waste.
I felt cheated. Yeah. So, but yeah, that was amazing. You know, now that first chance he gave me was a matinee on 4th of July. At the time,
Closed doors don't make money.
this was the greatest opportunity of my entire life. But then, you know what, though? I sold that son of a bitch out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all that matters,
That's
right?
awesome.
1 to 4 on 4th of July. What? Nobody has plans, right?
No, right? Everyone hates cookouts. I think you brought that up multiple times on this episode, right? They despise it. They'll literally do anything other than a cookout, especially on the 4th of July.
You couldn't 3D print a crowd, son. So
Exactly right.
I hit the pavement.
So the one thing I do want to hit on this, because I know we're talking about the Chameleon Club and CI Records. It's based here in Lancaster. It's a record store. It's a skate store. You have 2 incredibly talented acts credit to your name amongst many others. But you have August Burns Red, you have Texas in July. But for some of our listeners that aren't from here, they might be listening to this podcast that from afar, Lancaster, Pennsylvania might not be the place that comes to mind when they think of a music scene. How has CI Records contributed in other ways to the local music community and helped foster a vibrant music culture in the area? Because I know there's something specific that I know you can talk about that you do every year that helps foster this culture.
It was a journey to that specific thing. Yeah. I think, again, first of all, traveling a lot, like 40 U.S. tours or whatever, into similarly sized and styled venues and stuff, and similarly sized markets. I started to realize like the deficits and the things that we had and did well. Anyone in a quote industry, right? Maybe I didn't look at it at the time that way, but it is.
Yeah.
Like you're amalgamating all the things you saw and loved about each and every club, scene, production, and everything, and you're jettisoning all the things you thought sucked. Well, that makes for a pretty good plan, right? So
Yeah.
I started thinking like I was always an open door. You could always ask me, because of the grace of one of my idols, how to press a record, how much you should pay for recording, how long you should practice. Do you really need a $75,000 amp? All that stuff. I would talk about all that stuff with anyone. And then it started, I went to South by as a tour manager a couple of times with two different bands. It was early in South by, so it was like early 2000s. And I'm like, this is insanely awesome. Now, what South by has become is an absolute juggernaut. It's absolutely amazing. It's also different from the version of South by that I saw, which was like a little more organic and intimate and kind of a discovery festival. It's not their fault that like Brad Pitt thinks it's cool. That's really good for them, right?
That's good marketing.
That's great, right? And that Jennifer Aniston wants to pull up. Like, that's great. But it is what it is. I wanted the North by Northeast, so to speak. After having been to a couple of those, I'm like, wow, these bands I'm working for are playing a festival, but it has like an educational element. And truthfully, there was a bit of selfishness because the calls and emails were coming in quite often. How do I do this? How do I do that? And I'm like, what if I can compact it into one thing, right? And now, instead of being the only voice, I can invite the people that taught me stuff and whose counsel I seek, right?
Yeah.
And this is like winning on all levels, but I also wanted to recreate, again, through no fault of their own and through their immense success. It's just different now, right?
Yeah.
Super admirable undertaking. Hear me, South by? I'm not throwing shade on you. But no, you did not hear me, South by. That's okay. I
No, we're gonna send it to them.
We're going to send it directly to them.
But I did want that intimate feeling I felt in the 2000s, and Lancaster's the place. But my city gave me all the tools. We had the live music infrastructure at several establishments. It's so baked in that even the convention centers, like, we got to have live music. Said no other convention center ever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
No, we want corporate cubicles at $2,000 an inch. That's what we want, but not Lancaster because of that acumen, right? That background that's in our blood and our soul now. And then we had all these artistic minds. We had this gallery row. At one point, we had 61 art galleries of all different, methods and stuff. We have 5 record stores right now, This is the spot, man. This is Austin of the Northeast, right? We got beers. We got everything. We do it all here, and it's special. Our restaurants. We have, I think, 100 in like a 20-block radius. And
Insane.
because of our Mennonite population, we have a deep history in refugee placement because they're really kind people who want to help others, and that's why our food selection is so diverse and authentic.
Yes.
So now we're attracting foodies and music nerds and all this great stuff. This is where we do this thing called Launch. Logical advice and unique and necessary career help. There, I just dropped that one out there.
I never even knew that was
Yes.
an acronym.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I
Wow,
didn't either.
That's right. No, very few. I don't usually. That doesn't. It's a mouthful. But
So launch.
yeah, and our contemporaries, I had a partner at the time, awesome, like superhuman influencer, mostly in the East and West Shore of Harrisburg, was in killer bands, put on shows on 2nd Street and all over the place for years, released records. We released records together. His name's Rick Gadd, who's now
Decadent
running
Suite.
the Orpheum in New Orleans, which is like one of the most legendary music venues in the world. But he and I said, let's just do it. And I remember walking in, the convention center hadn't quite been open. So the first year we were only at what was Brunswick. It's a Holiday Inn now, block away. And we walked in, and there's a tote board on the wall of like all their reservations for the year. And the lady says, oh, what are you trying to do? Oh, we want to do like a music education conference. We left out that 100 bands would play at night, and then we'd party our balls off. She's like, oh, well, when do you want to do it? And I looked up at the calendar, and there was like one reservation in April, and the rest of it's like blacked out. And I'm like, April? She's like, oh, come on in. So that's how it's in April. That's the whole story.
That's the whole.
Yeah.
So that's. I mean, I've been to launch a few times. I had the honor of playing launch one time, and it's like launch. I don't think there's many cities that do stuff like this, let alone that do something like this. And someone that has attended can say, it in a music sense, it's life changing. Like it's a completely different experience. You're like, there are so many like-minded individuals that come to this event, and you're all here for the same reason.
Yeah.
You're here to learn about music, you're here to see the bands, and you're here to love it all together.
Yep.
And like you said, I'm really glad you said it, because I was scared to party your balls off at night. Like, you are going to have the most incredible time. Launch is a completely different experience, man.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
I mean, launch, I don't know how many people I've explained it to. They're like, oh, what are you doing this week? And I'm like, oh, I'm taking a long weekend. I'm going to launch. And they're like, oh, what's that? And I tell them about that. They're like, and it's where? I'm like, Lancaster. They're like, it's 20 minutes away? And I'm like, yeah, it's awesome.
It
Like,
takes over like the entire city.
a VIP pass is like $85. You get into every show. Let's go. Like, come on. Like,
I got to
probably
give
more
that
now, I don't know, but
props there on pricing. That was a heavy influence also from like Kevin Lyman and Warped Tour. This guy's delivering this incredible product for like $40, you know, and you're seeing everybody who's next.
Yeah.
And for people who don't give a crap about like Sleeping with Sirens being huge and they're unaware of that, okay, well, Eminem played it and Katy Perry, so suck on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
he was
exactly
definitely
right.
curating modern music, right?
Yeah.
But then Kevin became a partner in launch for several years as well. It was like I'd come home like, oh my God, I got the guy who influenced me, to be involved in this. And he was very helpful. I think launch is a musician's play date. That's what I decided.
That's a good way to put it.
It's a really good way to put
Great
it.
way to put it.
But it also is honestly, so you're the goal is that you leave with hope, but not like false hope. The goal is that you leave with respect, but not disingenuous, dishonesty about like your chances or how you're doing. It really has to be tangible. However, when the learning's done, let's all remember what really matters, which is like getting together and laughing and having a freaking awesome time. So
Absolutely.
I hope my goals have always been to strike that balance, like the importance of knowing how to do something and knowing as much as you can about your craft and all the business stuff that comes along with it, but then also to remember that you love it. That is like the most important thing. I've probably said that to 5,000 people over the first 15 years. Like, remember you love it, first of all. Just remember that,
This is true.
great.
And that, I think, comes through in the way that people vibe and have a great time.
Absolutely.
That's great. Wow.
I mean, and you talk about like supporting these. Like you have the acts. You're like, they may not turn a dime right away, but like if they have something, they have something. You talk about sticking with them. Now, August Burns Red is not that example. I do believe August Burns Red was definitely turning a profit, but they have exploded to such a level that not only do you do something called launch, but I mean, we recognize, and we say this and we don't mean it lightly, but they are hometown heroes. Like August Burns Red, they put, like you said, they put metalcore, I think, like their style of it on the map. They were genre defining for their time. So you decided, oh, well, let's do Christmas Burns Red. Yeah. And it's like a mini launch and it's like insane. And it's like it's probably I gotta say, I think Chris Burns Red, and I'm not fluffing this, like it's probably the most fun like music experience I have besides Launch.
Well, that
because
makes me super happy.
It's so quick. It's not as long as Launch. You just go, maybe stay like one night.
There's no homework.
There's no homework, exactly. And you just get to go, and you're like, oh, cool. Here's August Burns Red that probably just came off of a tour. Now they're going to play this show. And guess what? Still kill it. Like, they sound incredible every time I see them. Like, dude,
Can't disagree there.
I've never seen them bad. I've never seen them sound bad ever. Not once. Yep. Not once. It's crazy. Whether it's the beginning, the middle, the end of the tour, it doesn't matter. They're just incredible every time.
Extremely tight.
Well, people are like, why? How did they become the greatest? I'm like, because they're the greatest.
Yeah.
It just is. Like,
seriously.
Matt Greiner is the metalcore drum lord for a reason.
Yes,
we heard it from the man himself.
Right. JB's a shredder.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jake is phenomenal. Dustin can play any instrument in the world.
Yeah.
Same with Brent. Like they're just, and the thing that really parallels for me to like my earliest beginnings in music is they are a band.
yeah.
In every possible way you can describe it. The way that punk bands used to describe it. Like, we're brothers, we're family, we're warriors. They are a band.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And that is, I think, a contributing factor to their already great chances of success for being amazing musicians and
Absolutely.
songwriters.
Well, they're just absolutely amazing people on top of that.
They are
Can't-
just genuinely
cannot
Doesn't
imagine that.
hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
It definitely does not.
Yeah, but there are people out there that are having a lot of success that aren't very nice, you know?
Oh yeah, we
could talk about that for about just as long as we could talk about comics and
I ain't
music in
naming
general.
names. Hell no.
No.
But
This is positive stuff.
Yeah.
here, right,
Positive
guys?
stuff.
but I'll tell you, that is the mega bonus when it comes to dealing with those guys. So the Christmas show started the year I opened the CI Records store. CI Records and Skates. It was 1995. It was 1995.
It was 85 years ago.
But anyway, sorry.
Fine.
We opened the store, and that Christmas, I'm like, I'm having a Christmas show. So it was like this band called Shelter. It's a guy I did a record label with. He was in his old hardcore band called Youth of Today. He's a good friend of mine, and I'm also a huge fan. So I had Shelter on an off date from their tour with No Doubt, right? Bunch of old hardcore guys playing melodic hardcore, really great. And then the opener was his wife's band, who had been signed to Equal Vision Records. That's how far back Equal Vision goes. And then the openers were the Get Up Kids for $100 and Jimmy Eat World for $50.
Oh my God. Jimmy Eat World.
Yeah,
As the runner-up.
was a nerd and owned 7 inches by both bands, and I was like, you got to come here. You got to come here. You kid over here from Arizona, you from Kansas. I got at least $100 for you. But no, that was great. It was sold out. Christmas show became a tradition. Fast forward, we're doing Christmas show in 2007. And it's a lot of CI bands. Pink Spiders are headlining, drew a phenomenal crowd, but there was a phenomenon that happened. August Burns Red plays this show, and it's 07, yes. And there's a walkout after them. Now, admittedly, the genres, I was a genre bender all the time. I didn't care. I loved people seeing diverse, styles of music on the same show. Now, the walkout meant that more people could come in, so it all worked out great. I think somehow we got 960 people in a 750 cap room because of the exchange of walk in, walk out. But then it became apparent, like, I think August Burns Red needs their own Christmas show. So 08, we've got CI Christmas Show 1 and CI Christmas Show 2. We do this all the way up to 2018. And at this point, CI Christmas, whatever one's theirs, 1 or 2, we're adding nights. Now they're playing 3 nights in a row. I'm like, guys, we need a bigger boat.
We need a bigger boat. It's time to reinvent this wheel.
Yeah. And I had been doing launch over here. The people at the convention center are super cool. Like,
They're really
this
nice.
wasn't going to be, shouldering your way in and threatening a lawsuit for discrimination. Like, they wanted music, man. And they were familiar with the band and with us. And it was great. And now I'm really glad it's a 2-day event over there. People are traveling from all over the world. But I just made this comment today. I've probably made this comment a bunch. It is the nicest group of people, it is a pleasure. Like, I don't know, man. ABR fans are just different.
They are.
It is spectacular to see, like, over 4,000 people come out and everyone's happy.
Yeah.
It's just unreal, man. I feel so fortunate to be a part of that.
I think that's directly related to, like, I don't mean to cut you
Oh,
off,
no,
sorry.
no, you're good.
But I think that's directly related to, like, the type of lyrics that they write. It's like, it's angry music for happy people.
They couldn't have
And
said
it's-
it better.
It's like they fostered and they built that culture. That's how they built their fan base. And I think it influenced those people in such a positive way. You can enjoy some serious heavy music and be happy
Yes.
while listening to it.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's something we noticed at the CD release show back in March. I mean, the crowd there was phenomenal, and it
Yeah.
was so great. Once again, not to go back to how great of people they are, but they really are. I mean, you saw Matt and JB and Brent and everybody just walking through the crowd, just walking up to their fans. People just, hey, how are you doing?
Right.
Nice to meet you. And people are right there like, you realize you're my hero, right?
Yeah.
Like
they
love
thanked,
to see that.
They thanked us.
Yeah.
For having them on the podcast. And I remember I was so genuinely confused. I was like, I heard that wrong. I was like, wait, what? And he's like, no. He's like, thank you so much for like having it. I was like, thank you for coming on my podcast. Like, are you kidding me? Like it was, and then like
You don't think the brand equity is equal there?
I mean, we're close.
it was really nice to meet them as a peer rather
Yeah.
than a fan for
Yeah.
once. But like it went so far as to like even the people that work for them. Then when we were done during our interview, they were getting ready to do the whole question and answer part. And I went down. I was like, oh, I'm going to buy some merch now. Like, it's my turn because I'm still a personal big fan. And the merch guy was like, hey, thanks so much for having us on the podcast and recognizing us. I was like, what is happening? I was like, where am I? I was like, this niceness that, like you said, like it doesn't exist like anywhere else. And it was just like, I just didn't want that night to end. It was
Felt like I
such a
was in-
special moment.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, I felt like I was in Canada for a minute.
Yeah, right. It's like I don't want to click my heels and go back to Kansas. Like I want to stay in Oz. Like I want to stay here.
You know, that journey was really most improbable if you asked real metalheads, right?
Yeah.
Like this idea that you're folksy and friendly and that you don't, I don't know, shave a pentagram into your chest and
Yeah.
all that stuff. Like that was sharply ridiculed there in the beginning.
Absolutely.
And they just kept doing a great thing well and being exactly who they are.
Yep.
And
I don't mean to presume to speak for them.
No.
But they literally are something all of us could benefit from, in that an example that kindness can be contagious.
Yeah.
I mean that. I know now there's going to be like, dude, shut up, okay? We didn't solve world peace. But no, in
Not
a
yet.
lot of ways, they made a lot of us think differently
About hardcore.
about our moodiness and our attitude. I really do admire them immensely.
Absolutely. And so we could talk about August Burns Red
I was gonna
all
say.
day.
Yeah.
We could, but
Me too.
this is about you. Not many people can state or claim what you can. What does it feel like to have been on this journey? And you are actually part of the foundational success of bands like August Burns Red, Texas in July, these internationally recognized genre-defining acts. What does that feel like for you? Like knowing that you're you helped, you were part of that journey. No one else can really say that, like in a way that you can.
Grateful. And all right. So being honest, like, so I don't sound like I'm full of it. Like, certainly, like, satisfied.
Sure.
Confirmed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? The bands I've mentioned that went on that we were able to, like, kind of lift up to the next tier or watch them go on to great things. That's very gratifying, man. Like, that certainly confirms your deepest suspicions that you're not a moron.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, that's pretty
I definitely
cool.
think that would help.
The extra with all of these examples from Pink Spiders, August Burns Red, Texas in July, etc., is that watching them upstream and blossom and have this profound effect on people, it also makes you believe that, again, like, really cool, down-to-earth, good people can also succeed. That I won't be the first or last person. This won't be the first time you're hearing that the music industry is cruel and unusual, because it really is.
Yeah.
If you let it be.
Yeah.
Like, I know that I'm smart enough to have been meaner. I know I'm smart enough to have been more vicious. It's not the life I wanted. I guess too many hardcore punk socio-political lyric sheets are in my head, and maybe my Catholic
Subconsciously
mom,
speaking
right?
to
And
you.
I did not want to be that guy. I have fought hard for things, but I've also worked a lot harder at letting a loss go than, losing the band, the tour you wanted, or not your history not being honored, or someone not choosing you, hurtful, and it makes you angry. But that's not the life I wanted in general. And I certainly didn't want it to poison the love of my life, music.
Yeah.
So you work at it, honestly. So watching people of a similar mindset, and that
Similar
are way
breed.
more talented than you succeed, oh my God, it's like the greatest feeling on earth.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean it. It restores your faith.
That's awesome.
And I know I sound kind of like evangelical right now.
No,
about
it,
it.
sounds
no,
I'm
I'm
purely
grateful.
genuine, honestly.
It
Like, you
really
can see the
is.
passion emanating from the way you can tell it's coming from the heart, and I think that speaks. The actions speak just as loud as the words that are coming out of your mouth. You can see the pure genuinity.
I've been a cheerleader for this area, the central Pennsylvania community, the entire time. Even down to if an artist came to me and said, "What do I have to do to get on to that show?" And I'm like, "Well, don't kill the messenger, son." But there are conditions on this one. And I never spent a lot of time explaining it's above my pay grade or whatever, because the facts are the facts, right? There's no point in me demonizing the owner of the venue who said this, or the manager of the band who said that. This is the condition for if you want a regional act. I wanted a regional act on every single freaking show. And I bet you 4% of my thousands of locally produced concerts have been devoid of a regional act. All right? So there may have been conditions to play some of those shows.
Yes.
But as I stated, my identifying who was responsible for those conditions did not change the fact that there were conditions. So what's the point of me saying to you, I think you have to draw 25 people, but it's not my fault, dude. I'm still nice. I'm still cool. Don't hate on me. No, I have to tell you the truth, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to learn now, and this is all launch crap and stuff rolling through my brain. You just need the facts, man. And then you make an informed decision, right? I'd always talk about that. But also, we definitely weren't just in the adverse. It wasn't just about that. There were plenty of opportunities to play without those conditions. Well, the same thing happened with the record label. I am a super fan of every single person in the music industry that has ever done anything remarkable out of this area, out of the heartland, man. And I definitely mean that. Ricky Armelino, until recently with Hawk, had never released a record on CI.
Yeah.
But I was always rooting, cheering for Ricky. He's now in Ice Nine Kills. I can't think of anyone who worked harder to get to that trajectory and longer.
Yeah.
Right? How much faith he had in himself, how much talent he had, and he knew it, but he was arrogant about it. And his band, This or the Apocalypse, was a band's band.
Yeah.
They were seriously, serious players earliest in the genre as well. Very revered by some of the bands we're talking about now.
I was gonna say they have a pretty big cult following here. This or the Apocalypse, diehard fans.
Watching him go from Shut Up Gorgeous to that over to Hawk, and on to Ice Nine Kills, I am elated for the type of success, and that's why we've talked all the time to this day since he was a kid working at CI.
That's awesome. Wow. Funny enough, I'm actually going to see Ice Nine Kills right after this. I'm not even
You're a
joking.
smart man. Spencer was here 3 days ago.
Oh, nice.
That was a band that we rooted for as well.
I met him at lunch for the first time ever. Yeah.
Great guy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great time.
Way before Ricky was in the band and stuff. They were playing the Champ. I'm sure Chris was there in the earliest days.
Yep, that was
and
there too.
Our regional acts would play. One of the CI bands, an early ending. They draw big crowds. That band was willing to drive down, play second or third of 5, and just be grateful to be in front of people. Before you know it, they're a phenom in Harrisburg. They're one of the biggest bands. And Spencer was just saying to me the other night at Rock Lit, it's dude, you realize that was like the first out of town market, Lemoyne, right?
Yeah.
That we were like, oh my God, is this what it feels like to be a headliner? Like that people are seriously into us? He said it gave us so much confidence. Like we'll never forget that.
And we were just standing there thinking like, man, this is probably just like a breeze by show for them.
Yeah. But that was my job.
Yeah.
I will promise you that. And that was my job with CI bands, with everything. And I know all of you, if you go back, no flyer got better design than the other one. No show got different treatment.
Nope.
I promise you that. If it was 4 brand new regional bands, or it was Ice Nine Kills coming through to sell out the Champ for the 5th time, the flyer art, everything about the approach, it was always identical.
It was.
Because I do feel like it's my job to trick the person into thinking this must be really great. Look at this presentation.
Yeah.
I
my
do
God, yeah.
think that was all to give those acts a leg up, and like, you know, we're not doing this like favoring the hot hand here. Like, look, man, we were a dirt road with no sign. It was a dry half a warehouse.
Uh-huh.
Who the hell
Under
do
a
we think
railroad
we are? If we can't like throw our weight behind regional acts, man, they all might as well quit. You know?
That's true.
Yeah.
Man, that's crazy. Wow. Man, we have covered a lot of
Yeah.
bases here tonight. I'm glad we got to sit here and talk about all this stuff. Jeremy, I feel like we could sit here and talk for hours.
I can't
about this,
wait
man.
for volume 9, 10.
Oh, me too. Me
But
too.
before we close this out, I do
I
have,
do want to, go ahead.
I do have one more question for you. So you've been doing this, like we said, since 1987.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see CI? Where do you see launch? Where do you see that 10, 20, 30 years from now?
I mean, everything, there is a trade-off, but it's not all financial, right? So I want to promise you this, that I think the biggest fundamental mistake every creative person has ever made is creating something that they love, but quantifying its success by whether or not we love it. And then getting pissed off and mad, and they keep trying to create the same thing because they're too attached to it. So I can love launch, and it could have lasted 1 year, and it can be a super fond memory. Just like I can love a record on the label that I pressed 1,000 and sold 60. It's a super fond memory. But to keep going back and making it so personal, like this is what I want to do, and this is the way I want to do it. And if you don't like it, I hate you, and I'm mad, and I'm always... So like, I don't see anything. I will not continue to advance projects and festivals and music and studios and things that we're all deeply involved in if no one's deriding enjoyment from it.
Mm-hmm.
That is stupidity business wise. It's hyper stubborn, you know, intellectually, and it's just going to bring you misery, and then you're going to be a miserable person. So my hope, that was a really long intro to my answer.
Hey, I like it.
I'm a bit infamous for that. I apologize.
That's all
but
good. I love
my
it.
hope is I'll do it till the day I die. As long as y'all have me, just keep wheeling old man Weiss in and let me smile and get some applesauce every now and then and wipe my chin. I'll be there.
So as long as Lancaster wants you, you'll be here.
Here's the old man Weiss.
Old man Weiss.
Oh, yeah, bring them
There we go.
together.
Cheers,
There we
boys.
go. Cheers.
It's liquid death, by the way.
But yes, I mean now
you.
I'm ready. I'm ready. I would love to have this conversation go on forever with you guys. I think you guys could probably listen to a lot more too, but
I think we're legitimately going to run out of memory here soon.
we probably will.
So am I.
I'm fearful of that. So let's end this on a good note. Jeremy,
I
thank you
appreciate
so
you
much.
guys. You've been
Thank you
around
so much.
forever, and what you're doing is awesome. All
Thank
of
you.
man.
And what you're doing is
Seriously.
great too, man. Let's
Yeah.
continue to be a community and work together for the greater good.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Let's keep
Love
doing
that.
cool shit.
Hell yeah, guys.
Until
Let's
next
do it.
time, man.
Yes, sir.